listening to the Patriot Nation Podcast.
All right, welcome into another edition of the Patriot Nation Podcast. As always, you got Pat Lane here with my man, Matt St. Jean. And Matt, it's Combine Week officially, which is pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, no, it's always an exciting week. And, the headlines around the Combine are always the numbers, who tests well, who doesn't test well, what comes out of the interviews, all that. But, what's important about this week outside of that is that this is where the teams are all in one place. So
Yes.
Negotiations start happening, rumors spread, things get leaked. I think it's your first real, look at what teams are thinking approaching the offseason.
Absolutely, right. And then, executives get a few drinks in them, and they end up at the bar, and they're talking to, reporters, and one.
And then the next thing you know, you've traded away Luka Doncic.
Right. Yeah. But hey, I mean, that's it's the way it is. Jared is asking if the stream is muted. I don't know if I'm hearing everything.
I can hear you, Pat.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe Jared's stream. Maybe I don't know. I think we're good, Jared. I think. Yeah. But anyway, so we're gonna get into Combine talk. We're gonna do a mock draft actually at the end of the week, and we're gonna talk more about the Combine kind of as we get through it. Of course, really hasn't started yet today as we sit here. So we'll get into that a little bit. We'll talk probably more about it next week, I would say. But today we're going to be starting with a look at some free agents. And we're kind of on the fence about how we wanted to do this. There's a bunch of different ways, and we could say, okay, well, maybe we could have the top tier guys for the Patriots or the bottom tier guys for the Patriots, whatever the case may be. But Greg Rosenthal this morning came out with the top 101 NFL free agents. And so we thought, let's just take a look at that list and go through at some of the guys. And even if we just take a look, kind of 1 through 10 and then 11 through 20, and then, just a quick peek at some of the guys. And of course, we're not going to go through all 101, but, but some
that
guys
would be a very boring show.
Yeah, it sure would be. Yes, it sure would be. So, but some guys that we think might really matter for them. So,
but before we get into this list, I think we should probably set the stage by talking about who from the Patriots is going to hit the market. Because we've talked a lot about who the Patriots can add. We haven't talked about who hits the market. Maybe we start there.
Sure, let's do that. I think it's a good idea.
So the unrestricted free agents from this team, Austin. Maybe we could do a quick yes, no. Would you want them back? Type thing on these guys. Austin Hooper.
Yeah, the right price.
Yeah, Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I land too. I feel like you could probably sign any other any cheap veteran will do.
And I wouldn't hate having Jacoby back.
No,
but whatever. If you decide to do someone else, then you decide to do someone else. But I agree with you. Any cheap veteran is fine with me.
Yeah. Running back Michael Hasty.
No, unnecessary.
I'm kind of on the sure. If you want to.
Right.
That's very much a compete for a job in camp type of signing if you make it. Interesting one. Captain Dietrich Wise.
I think probably, yeah. I mostly because I think he's not going to command a lot of money. I think he's a good locker room guy. Everything I've ever heard of Wise just says that, everyone I've ever talked to just says he's the nicest guy. And he really has worked his butt off for the Patriots. He's not a great player, but, he's a leader in the locker room, and he works hard, and he's a good guy. So I'll take it.
This is one spot where I look at and I think, the defense wasn't that good last year. The front seven was not good last year. This the fact that his contract is up, it does feel like an easy way to say, hey, we're going to let you go your own way. And we're going to upgrade the spot somehow in free agency. So I wonder if they do that. I also, the fact that he's a captain, nice guy, all that is good. We did hear a lot about locker room issues last year. The captain's not taking enough of a leadership role. So I do wonder if this is another opportunity to say, hey, we're going to get fresh voices into the locker room. He's also getting up there in age. I don't think this was his best season. So, I mean, I'm yes for the right price, but I think my right price might be lower than people might expect it to be.
Yeah, and I think that that's okay. I think that I think that's reasonable, right? I'm not certainly overextending for Dietrich Wise, but I do think that he's a guy that's been here a long time, and so so I think that it makes sense to bring him back as long as you're not paying too much. Also, dad jokes are always welcome. He does make a fine potato chip as well. Thank you, Boston Bob. Appreciate that.
Love it. Daniel Aquale?
Yeah, I think he's probably back. Yeah, again, a rotational, pass rusher on the inside that I think is good, but he's not. He's never. I shouldn't say never, but it doesn't seem like he's ever going to be a guy that can be a real contributor for you. But I think in packages he can be decent, which I think is valuable. But it's not like oh my god, we have to have this guy back or else we're going to be really struggling.
When he missed most of the season, so maybe they want to add him back in because they felt like they missed him last year.
Certainly possible.
Getting up there in age now, 31. I might bring him back. I think he's a useful player. I don't think there's any kind of guarantee that he's making this roster.
Right.
But I like him. I think he has a useful role out there. And they definitely missed his pass rush, at least as a situational guy last year. O'Shan Simonis?
Yeah. I mean, no, we never really saw anything from him. Now, maybe that was coaching, maybe that was whatever, but he never made an impact on the team. And so
then he got
hurt.
As
I'm concerned. And then he got hurt, right? But I mean, it's just even before he got hurt, he never really did anything. And so,
Yeah, he and Aquale went out actually around the same time. And Bentley. Yeah, that was the death knell for the defense.
Yeah.
Not Bentley, not more than Jimenez. Jonathan Jones.
Well, John Jones, friend of the show, Jonathan Jones. I think yes. I think he comes back because I think that he does enough. He can play inside. He can play outside. He still has enough speed. Yeah, I think he comes back.
Yeah, I think I would bring him back too because I like him as a leader. And I think there was one game last year where he really didn't play well. We all kind of overreacted and said, "Well, that's it for him." And then he bounced back all right. And he's not against the game against the Bills in week 14, 15, whatever that was. He played really well in that game, I thought. So I think he's got something left in the tank. He knows the scheme. He knows how to play with the other guys in the secondary. And, he's not a guy who's getting big money. He's a guy who, if you sign him and you come into camp and he doesn't have it anymore, you can let him go. But I think as a veteran guy who can be third, fourth corner, third, fourth safety, not going to make a whole lot of mistakes, he's useful.
Right.
Yeah. And then one more guy on defense is Jalen Hawkins.
So the interesting thing with Hawkins, right, is that last offseason it looked like he was going to be the guy to be playing safety for the Patriots. And he played a little bit. But, how good was he? You know what I mean? How good really was he last year?
I thought of the guys who actually played, I thought he might have been their best safety. I mean, Peppers didn't play. Duggar didn't play well.
Right. But, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't hate bringing him back. I feel like, again, I wouldn't mind bringing him back as a backup or a depth guy. But I'm not bringing Jalen Hawkins back thinking he's going to be our starting free safety.
Fair. Oh, I don't think he's ever really been that level of guy.
No, not necessarily. No, and you're right. I just think again, it's like, is it a priority to bring Jalen Hawkins back? No. If Jalen Hawkins comes back, that'd be fine. But he's not a priority to bring back.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do agree with that. I would take him back for a low price. I think he is your new Deron Harmon in some ways if he returns. He's your third safety. Like the fit works. If you're keeping Duggar and Peppers, keeping Hawkins as the guy to be the free safety to let those two play closer to the line of scrimmage, I think makes sense.
Yeah.
Also, I think definitely a spot you can upgrade. So that might be we're gonna let him hit the market, see how things play out, and then maybe we bring him back.
Yeah. Yeah. If it's a small deal, 2-year, few $1,000,000, sure. But like I'm not, again, and for basically for all of these guys, I'm not overextending for pretty much any of them. There's no one I look at on the free agent, on the Patriots free agent list and say I have to bring that guy back. And I would say I probably feel the most strongly about Jonathan Jones. And even still, I'm not extending myself to really bring him back. And I don't think you're going to have to for any of these guys, really. But like,
No,
I'm not saying, man, we have to keep that guy.
Yeah. One other guy is Joey Sly, your kicker from last year.
And again, I don't hate it, but like I also think we could get younger at the position too. We could pick up a guy
they have a guy
or something like that.
They already have a guy. They have John Parker Romo, who they signed to a futures contract.
Yeah, that's nice. John Parker.
I know nothing. I gotta say, John Parker Romo, like
I'm out.
when you hear three names like that, I'm thinking, is this guy like a serial killer?
Yeah.
Like John Parker Romo sounds like someone who like would assassinate someone. Like that's like a name you read in a history book. Is John Parker Romo did this thing.
Right. Maybe not the guy you want kicking. I don't know.
But maybe it is.
Maybe it is.
He's all XFL in 2023.
Maybe he's deadly accurate as a kicker, and so therefore you have to keep him. You know what I mean?
There you go.
Never.
He's been with the Lions, the Bears, and the Vikings.
He's just waiting for his breakout.
Yeah. So and I would bring back Sly just because he was decent last year. And you have John Parker Romo, and then you probably bring in one more guy, an undrafted free agent. And you let these guys kick in the spring and see how they look, and then probably cut one going into camp because you really only have room for like two kickers on the roster. There's only enough reps to go around for two kickers, so cut one guy who is already out.
Yeah,
and go from there.
Also, you have 3 7th-round picks, so you can use one of those 7th-round picks on a kicker if you really are desperate for one. Like if there's a guy you love that you want to sign as a UDFA, but you like him enough, just draft him in the 7th round. Kiss.
See, I will say this. I'm not sure if I like drafting a kicker because I just don't think we're good at knowing who the good kickers are.
We used to be. Steven Gosowski was.
I don't mean we, the Patriots. I mean we. When I say we, I mean the NFL.
I
don't think anyone's.
I got you.
Because I think if Roberto Aguayo was like a can't miss kicking prospect, and he was not. He was not any good.
It's a fair point.
And some of the guys who've been good kickers, it seems to be kind of random. So I think I'd almost just wait for UDFAs to just sign someone you like and just do that every single year, even if you have a veteran kicker you like. I think that's probably what I would do there. And then one other name on this list is Christian Ellis. Sorry, there's 2 names on this. Christian Ellis and Lester Cotton, who they added right at the end of the season, who's a lineman. Both of them are restricted free agents.
I think Ellis is back.
Ellis. Yeah, he was probably their best linebacker last year.
Yeah.
Healthy.
I would say Ellis is probably back, and whoever Cotton guy is, maybe you never know. I don't know. Whatever. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I feel about that too.
Yeah.
Before we hit the actual free agent, speaking of players under contract, did you see what's going on with the Giants right now?
No. Maybe
do you know how many professional quarterbacks the New York Giants have under contract for 2025?
Ooh, is it 0? Is it 0?
It's 0.
Let's go. I love it.
Drew Lock is an unrestricted free agent. Tim Boyle is an unrestricted free agent. And then Tommy DeVito is an exclusive rights free agent.
That's so great. I'm so excited about that.
I did miss one. Alex Austin is an exclusive rights free agent. Bring him back.
Yes, they'd be stupid not to bring him back.
Well, and that's like you just like check a box and say, yeah, you're back.
Yeah,
there's no money attached to that, really. So
correct. And I wouldn't hate them like actually signing him to a deal. But that's just me.
Look, if you can get them on cheap money for now, take them on cheap money for now. No reason to pay more when you don't have to.
Which is true. But I wouldn't hate the idea of extending them. But maybe you wait on that. I don't know. So, all right, let's get into our free agents. Yeah. What's interesting about this free agent list is that the number one guy is probably not even going to end up being a free agent, and that is T. Higgins. He's the number one guy on the list, but he's almost certainly not going to be available. The number two guy on the list is a guy that I go back and forth on, and someone, and I'm not sure who it was because there's been a bunch of comments since, but I should have just saved it. Someone had said that they were out on this guy, and specifically because wait, where is it? Dang it! Oh, there it is. Boss GM. Think I'm out on Trey Smith. Doesn't make sense to pay two top guards. So I thought that was an interesting comment. Something that I think makes sense. He's 26. He's pretty young. Now his big knock. What's interesting about Trey Smith is that the big knock on him coming out of school was that he was injured, and he was injury prone, and people were worried about his long-term durability, and that hasn't been an issue thus far. Doesn't necessarily mean that that won't be the case somewhere down the line, but of course, Trey Smith then would have to bump back over to left guard. I think he was playing right guard for them last year, was he not?
He's only played right guard in the NFL because they've had Tooney on the left side.
Right.
But he played his last 2 years at Tennessee. He played left guard. So
right. So they have to bump him over. Yeah, he's done it. You know what I mean? I don't know. How do you feel about Trey Smith? Are you of the camp that would pay Trey Smith big money to come here and be the Patriots left guard?
Yeah. I mean, this line has one player that you think is good on it right now. So you need good players. The Patriots have $128 million in cap space. Like, it's kind of hard to spend that much money all at once. So I get the idea of being concerned about paying guards, but like, you need 5 good offensive linemen, or at least 4 good ones, and they have 1. So going from 1 to 2, you pay a price. Like I would pay a lot of money to go to double the amount of good offensive linemen on the team.
Well, and that's a fair point, right? And that's one of those things where you look at the situation that's there, and you just think we have to get up to competency, right? We have to become a competent offensive line, and part of doing that is having guys that are actual players, right? That are actual NFL players that you can trust to play. And Trey Smith is one of those guys, and I think that I would be on board with it. I would value a tackle more. Ronnie Stanley to me is the number one guy on my list. He's number 4 on this list, but he's the number one guy on my list. He's also 31. He's 5 years older. He's had injuries. He's had issues. If he can stay healthy, I really think that that he has like the chance to be like a really, really, really good left tackle. I think that's something that that you can't necessarily put a price on to have a guy like that.
Well, sign both.
Which you could.
You have the money to do it. Assuming these guys both hit the market, and this puts you in a really nice position. If you're doing this too, Smith is going to get some kind of a long-term 5-year deal, which perfect. That means that you're going to have 2 powerful guards on the interior for the next few years. You know that you're going to have that. You know that they're quality players. You just don't have to worry about that position anymore. And because of that, for the next couple of years, you can still draft guards if you want for depth. But you can just say, all right, that's one position that we don't really have to throw draft capital at unless we really, really like a player. You just don't have to think about it. You can use your day 2, day 3 picks on tight ends, running backs, extra wide receivers, corners, safeties, linebackers instead. So there's an opportunity cost there. And then I would sign Stanley to like a 2-year deal if he's down for that,
Yeah.
or 3-year deal. And
Give him
that's
big
kind
money.
of and that's your Band-Aid. And then you can still, that means if you like a tackle in this year's class, you can still draft a tackle in this year's class, let him sit and develop a little bit, or switch him over to the right side like the Chargers just did with Joe Alt,
Yeah.
and try to flex things out there, which is why I don't know where he is on this list, but one of the other names that's appealing is Morgan Moses, because he's the right tackle that you could sign, kind of do a similar thing of just older Band-Aid tackle that you're just going to put in one of these spots for a year or two and deal with the problem later, or develop while they play.
Yeah. And look, I will say that I do think that it makes sense. I mean, if you can look, we're talking about, 2 of the 4 best free agents available this year, according to NFL.com. Now, again, that's according to one guy, but
It's Greg Rosenthal. He's good at this.
he's legitimate, and I think that would be a consensus from the majority of people that you talk to. And so, to me, if you're able to bring in both guys, now you look at it and say, okay, we have a left tackle that we like, we have a left guard that we like, and one of the things that I'm trying to think, I think it was Tayler Kyles has been kind of big on, and the fact that Taylor felt that a lot of the drafting a tackle at number 4 overall is simply because the Patriots offensive line stinks right now. And you're almost drafting someone in there just because you need another player, right? Because they're not good. And so throwing money at the problem is a good idea, right? Upgrading through free agency is something that can be very beneficial. Now, of course, it can backfire and it doesn't always work, but going from bad to competent can happen because, you have that situation where it's like, all right, we went from having just a right guard to having a left guard, a left tackle, and a right guard. We feel pretty good about where we're at. And we have a flux of centers, right, depending on who's there. And then we have some right tackles, one of them being a rookie from last year. Then we have, DeMontre Jacobs, who's back next year. Then we have other guys that we say, okay, can these guys improve? Will they be better in a new system, right? Will they be better with another year under their belt? And so, and then we can also draft a guy. But now we're not looking at it saying, all right, we have to at number 4 draft a tackle because everything else sucks. You know what I mean?
Well, it puts you in a position where your line next year could look like Ronnie Stanley at left tackle, Trey Smith at left guard, someone at center. If David Andrews is healthy and returns, Cole Strange wins that job, Ben Brown improves, whatever that ends up being. Michael Wenham at right guard. And let's say you're sitting there at pick 4 and you still did like Will Campbell all along and you think he's a tackle. You could take him and you can do what you did with Nate Solder years ago and put him at right tackle to start.
True.
And I think he'd make a good right. Like, I have some questions about Will Campbell as a tackle, but I think he can play right tackle, at least at a decent level, and put him at right tackle. And you play him there. And, if let's say he excels at right tackle, you can make him your permanent right tackle. We're going to lock him in there. If you know that he's up for it, you can say after a year or two, all right, we're moving him back to the left side. We're going to let Ronnie Stanley walk, or we're going to trade him, or, whatever we're going to do. And now we have our franchise guy, and now all of a sudden, if Will Campbell works out next year, you've gone from 1 good starter to 4 good starters on the line, potentially, depending on what you're getting at the center position. You might have 5 good starters, and you've reinvented the line overnight, which I think should be a priority for this team. I will note on Trey Smith, there have been rumors that the Chiefs are going to use the transition tag on him.
Yeah.
So the transition tag is like the franchise tag, but it's a lower number, and the player can still negotiate. So I believe the way that works, because the Patriots did this with Kyle Duggar, is that anyone can still negotiate with Trey Smith, and the Chiefs get the right to match, an offer that's made. They get the final say there. Now, what's funny here, I was thinking about this earlier, Pat, when we talk about the cap, we talk a lot of the time about lowering cap hits so that we can spread things out over time. The Patriots might actually be in the opposite situation with Trey Smith, because you're trying to price out Kansas City so they can't even match an offer. The Pats have an insane amount of money this year, $130 million to go around. So you can take all of that Trey Smith money and try to bump it all into year one of the deal so that he's just getting a ton of money right away in year one. Chiefs can't afford to match it. And maybe there's one other free agent you don't sign this year, but you've already taken a lot of the cap hit. And next year you can do, whatever you want. You still have more money in free agency to play with. So I wouldn't hate on some of these guys. The Pats actually going for front-loaded contracts, take advantage of the money you have now and try to save money down the line for better free agent classes.
Yeah, I agree. All right, some of the other people on the offensive line. I think maybe we just stick to offensive line just for a minute.
I'm down.
I'm just kind of I went down to like 50-ish, and we'll kind of go up from there. Mekhi Becton is one of them. They have him listed as a guard. He obviously played tackle for a while, excelled last year as a guard in Philadelphia. Interesting name. Interestingly named. I don't know if the Patriots would be interested in. I don't know if I'd really love a reclamation project with him, but he's still only 26. So it's not the end of the world. Dan Moore from Pittsburgh is another name. Not great.
He was the guy battling with Chuks Okorafor.
Right. Not great, but meh, okay.
He's a stopgap. I would rather have Dan Moore at the price Dan Moore is gonna get than Cam Robinson at the price Cam Robinson is gonna get.
Well, right, and that's the other part. Patrick McCarry is a guy from Baltimore. That's an interesting name. I'm not sure if he's a tackle or a guard. He looked a little bit out of place as a guard last year. Maybe he's a tackle, but then is he really a great? It's hard to know.
McCarry played almost 1,000 snaps at left guard last year, and also almost 200 at right tackle. The year before, he split between left and right. Year before that, he split between left and right tackle. That is. He was a right tackle in 2021, and then in 2020 and 2019, he's primarily a center.
Yeah.
So he's done it
all over the place.
I would actually like if you miss out on some of the top guys, or Ronnie Stanley comes back, Trey Smith doesn't hit the market, things like that. McCarry is a guy who I like signing because I don't know what position he's going to play, but he's going to play somewhere.
He's
going to be
a serviceable player. Yeah. Tevin Jenkins is an interesting name on here. Guard from Chicago. I don't know if they'll let him go, which is where it's, this is kind of always the situation where you look at it and say, well, are they going to let that guy walk, right? Are they going to let Tevin Jenkins walk? I don't know. I don't know if they are. It depends on what they look at. New coaching staff over there, you never know, what they're going to look at. But he's an interesting name. Guard, obviously, you mentioned Cam Robinson already. Alaric Jackson is another name that
the tackle.
People talk about a lot from the Rams. I think that he is, for me at least, he's the second option at tackle. Ronnie Stanley would be my first one. But I would be certainly okay with Jackson as a consolation prize.
And what's funny about Alaric Jackson is he has short arms. He's sub 33-inch arms, kind of in the Will Campbell potential mold. So that would be interesting. It'd be funny if they signed him. We're going to do the Will Campbell discourse for months here in New England, only to just sign a guy to play the position who has the same measurables.
I know.
Tevin Jenkins is interesting to me. So he was actually a tackle coming out in 2021.
Right.
I believe. Do you remember what pick Christian Barmore was?
38, I believe. Christian Barmore was 38.
Tevin Jenkins is the next guy.
Was the next 39. Pick, right?
Yeah. He was a left tackle. Didn't play much as a left tackle as a rookie. Didn't play well as a left tackle. They kicked him inside to guard. He was right guard his second year in the league. Right and left his third year. And then this past season, just left guard. And PFF grades all above 72 for all three of those seasons. And here at left guard last season, PFF grade 75, run block grade 74, pass block grade 76. So he is well-rounded player. I have to watch the film to verify these numbers because it's PFF, but signing Tevin Jenkins to play left guard at the price Tevin Jenkins is going to get might be better value than Trey Smith at the price he's going to be.
Right.
And you might get just as high quality of a play.
Well, and that's the interesting thing. And that's one thing the Patriots are going to have to weigh is, if we're going to pay a bag to Ronnie Stanley or, a guy we're going to talk about here, Milton Williams, can we then, instead of getting Trey Smith, can we get a guy like Tevin Jenkins who's going to cost a little bit less, is about the same age, and, we feel good about him too. So, so that's an interesting question. And the last guy is actually a center, as Drew Dahlman. And again, this is one of those situations. Will the Falcons let him walk? I don't know if they'll let him go. He's been a starter the last few years. He's been a pretty solid starter for them the last few years. And so, I'm curious to see where the Patriots go out and try to sign a center to compete. They brought Ben Brown back. We expect David Andrews will be back, but I think that it's going to be very telling what they decide to do at the center position. I think is going to give us a lot of information about how they feel about David Andrews. And in 3D Pool Tile, mentions that Cole Strange could be a center too.
I'm saying that,
yeah. Yep.
I think with the Strange thing, and with any of the guys that have been drafted recently, it's important to remember that they were not drafted by this front office.
Correct.
Especially Strange. That's 2 front offices ago, essentially, that picked him now. And, he might be a good player. I like Cole Strange. I'm hoping he can make it work. There's no allegiance to him in that building right now. So they can sign someone over him. They can do, he might. There's no plan to build around him, especially because, I'm assuming they're not accepting his option. So he's a free agent after this year. And if you could turn him into something, you turn him into something. But if you can't, there's no sweat off your back there. No one's upset at you for not being able to turn Cole Strange into a good player, especially in that building. So ownership's not going to be upset at you because you could just say, that wasn't my pick. That's the other guy who you already got rid of.
Yeah, true. It's true. All right. I think just quickly, if we can touch on the D tackle situation, there's not many of them, but there are some top end guys that I think are worth mentioning. And then we'll do our quick ad break. Milton Williams, obviously the number 1 guy from Philadelphia, absolutely balled out, was a huge problem in the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. I think that, he's a guy that's going to get paid this offseason. Who's going to pay him? I don't know. I think the Patriots, obviously they have committed stuff to the interior. Mm-hmm. If you sign a guy like Williams and that takes Mason Graham off the table at number 4, obviously that's not going to be the case, right? But I think that, that's going to be a fascinating look at, what do they look at there. And the other guy is Oza Odighizuwa, who from Dallas, who is a similar type of player, not the same player, but a similar type of player that can get after the passer from the inside. That interior pass rush is something the Patriots have lacked. And so, bringing in a guy like that, I think makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. That's funny. The blurb here on Odighizuwa says, self-scouting continues to be an issue for the Cowboys as they failed to get this rising interior pass rusher signed long-term before he balled out in a contract year. This is a whole thing with the Cowboys is acting a year too late on everything.
That's correct. Everything.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would love, I think Milton Williams I like, but I almost wonder if Odighizuwa is the better value play here. Don't pay the extra price for the name because people recognize it. Take a tiny bit of a discount on it, save yourself some money down the road, and get a player maybe just as good, and then invest some of that other money into players next year. Because the other part of this, you're not gonna sign a bunch of players this year. That's your Super Bowl core. You're signing guys. They're gonna be here for 3-4 years. A lot of them shorter than that. So sign guys, see what works, and have a little bit of money down the road so that next year you can make adjustments off of what worked and what didn't and how people reacted. Another name I like on the defensive line is BJ Hill from the Bengals. He's been a super solid player in the league for a long time. I think he's more of a run stuffer. they could use some of that. Like he could probably be your Lawrence guy on the interior if you needed him to be. Obviously, we'll see what Devon Goddraw gives you next year. So maybe you don't need him, but like I think it's clear they need more depth on that defensive line, and I wouldn't hate just going out and signing 2 or 3 quality guys there. And if you sign a Diggy and a BJ Hill, you got Godshaw, and if Barmore comes back and plays well, okay, now you have an absolutely loaded defensive tackle room.
Yeah, and that's where a guy like Jaron Reed, I think from Seattle, is an interesting name.
I like him coming out.
A big dude, and then Tershawn Wharton, who played in Kansas City last year, and I thought played pretty well, showed up at times, in the game watching. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? And so I thought that he played well too, and could be another rotational guy. And again, these are rotational guys. Williams and Ziggy Dua. No, that's not right. But you get what I'm saying. Osa are guys that I think you're going to want to be your starters. But then some of these guys are then backups. And the other guy I'll mention is Levi. I'm sorry, Onwazurike. Yeah, from Detroit, and he's a guy that's kind of had injuries up and down. But again, a rotational player that has a little bit of plus upside. I think he's kind of that next tier above the guys that we just mentioned. Again, I don't know if he's going to want to leave, if they're going to let him leave from Detroit. But I do think that, I'd be willing to take a chance on a guy like that. But I think you might be right that Odigizua might be your best option.
Yeah. Another name, I don't think he'd come to New England. I assume he's going to be chasing a ring here, but Calais Campbell.
Yeah.
He's old now, but he's a good player still, rock solid, good leader too. And if you're trying to build a culture, bringing in someone like that on the defensive line could be a plus move. And he was in Jacksonville while Vrabel was coaching Tennessee. So Vrabel will have had to go against him as a coach quite a bit. I do wonder. I don't think Campbell would be interested in coming to New England. Like he seems like a guy who's going to go sign with a contender somewhere probably. But
yeah, you would assume that Calais Campbell will do that. But again, if he's open to going wherever, I think you're 100% right about that. I would absolutely, bring in Calais Campbell. Not only, again, because of his play, but also because of his leadership in the locker room and the type of guy that he is as well,
Well, and what's crazy about Campbell to me, you look at how he played. He, in his first year, like as a rookie, he went to the Super Bowl with the Cardinals. Plays there for almost a decade. Never gets back.
Nope.
Then he goes to Jacksonville, and in year 1, they have a 10-point lead in Foxboro on the path to the AFC Championship game. He can't finish the deal. And then he plays for 3 years with the Ravens with Lamar Jackson there. Never even gets to a Super Bowl. Plays with the Falcons. I'm not really sure why he did that. And then the Dolphins last year, who fell apart. He's been a really, really, really good player in this league for a long time. He's one of those guys I hope gets a ring at some point because he has earned it at this point. He deserves some good luck.
I agree with you. So yeah. All right, let's do a quick ad break and then we'll come back and finish this conversation off. Of course, this ad is for Prize Picks. As you know, Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. As you guys know, I'm all over Prize Picks. I love it. I'm terrible at it, but I do it for the enjoyment, for the love of the game. I love it. I'm a big fan of it. And so again, as I said, you can win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. It's just that's incredible, right? It's the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states, including California, Texas, Georgia, Florida, and of course, Massachusetts. Okay. They also invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money, even if one of your picks doesn't hit. They put their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. So here's the deal, right? You think Steph Curry is going to get more than 5 3-pointers next week, or that Giannis is going to get more than 35 points, right? You can cook up hot takes with your friends. You can win real money this basketball season when you and your crew run your game on Prize Picks. So what you're going to do, you're going to download the Prize Picks app. You're going to sign up. You're going to put in the promo code CLNS. When you do that, you're going to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. You don't have to win your $5 lineup. You just have to play it. Again, download the app Prize Picks. Put in the promo code CLNS, and you're going to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Okay. Next up, because he's the number 5 guy on the board, and I'm excited to talk about this position, and it's linebacker. Zach Bond's number 5 on the list. I loved Zach Bond coming out of school at Wisconsin. He kind of up and down with the Saints, and Philly just unlocked him. Like, they just unlocked him this year.
Yeah.
He was incredible this year. And I think they'd be nuts to let him walk. But they certainly could. I also would be wary, if I were another team, to give him too much money, because he played so well in Philadelphia. But, like, there's a disconnect between the player he was in New Orleans and the player he was in Philadelphia. I'd be worried I'm getting New Orleans Zach Bond and not Philadelphia Zach Bond. And so that's my only concern with paying him top dollar, is that can I replicate what Philadelphia did for him last year?
It's funny because Bond is basically the reverse Kyle Van Noy. Van Noy was drafted high by the Lions to be like an off-ball linebacker and just stunk at it.
Yeah.
Came to New England, they used him as like a pass rusher and put him on the edge, and it was amazing. Perfect fit for his skill set. Bond's the opposite. He came in, everyone thought he was going to be a guy who played the edge, and he couldn't do that in New Orleans. The Eagles said, well, I guess we can try you. We'll take a flyer on you, and we'll try you off the ball and see how that works. And he became like one of the best linebackers in the league overnight doing that as a pass defender. So he's awesome. I would like to sign him. What I will say is, like, I'm concerned because this does feel like the old thing we'd see with the Patriots, where a player would play well for the Patriots and then go get paid a ton to play somewhere else, and we all be like, wow, I can't believe they paid him that much money. Then he would just be like, okay, for the other team because they didn't know how to use him. You do have to be wary of that here. But I also think the way Vrabel wants to play, I like Bond. Like, there aren't a lot of great linebackers coming out of college these days.
No.
So, or at least not hot. Like, it's linebackers are weird right now. Like, that's some you get good linebackers. It seems like as many on day 3 as you get on day 1. So I don't hate just paying for certainty. We know this guy can play in the NFL at a high level. We'll pay a little extra for the certainty of knowing that for the next 3-4 years, this guy can be, at least a B+ level guy in the middle of our defense. Wouldn't be upset about that one bit.
Yeah, I would agree. There's 2 other guys that I think are worth mentioning in the linebacker spot. That's Dre Greenlaw, who, of course, tore his Achilles running back onto the field during the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, which is just completely insane. Just completely insane that happened.
I don't think the Chiefs win that game if he stays
absolutely
healthy.
Not. I would agree. And so that's an interesting one. Dre Greenlaw, of course, he's 28. He had the torn Achilles. He did play a little bit last year, and looked okay. I don't know. So he's a guy that maybe San Fran lets him go, maybe they don't. I don't know. And then my guy, the guy that I love, I would like sell my soul to have Nick Bolton for the Patriots. I love Nick Bolton so much. I've loved him since he came out of Missouri. I love everything about the way he plays. He's awesome. He's awesome. And he's undersized, but he's an absolute beast. And he's the guy that just like consistently made plays for the Chiefs for the last 4 years. And he's a guy that I think the Chiefs would be nuts to let him go. But if they do, I would absolutely 100% go, go after him and see if we can bring him in and put him next to Juwan Bentley and go from there, and now you feel like you're set at linebacker because I think Bolton is an absolute dog.
Yeah. Another name here, if we want to play the, like X player, but at a discount type of thing here, is Ernest Jones.
Yeah.
Who has been moved a lot recently. You may have heard this name in the news because he played for the Rams. And then the Rams, I think right before the season, were like, we don't really want to, or might have been at some point last offseason, we're like, we don't really want to pay this guy on an extension, so we're just going to trade him now.
Yeah.
And Tennessee went out and got him because they were loading up on talent last year, trying to see if they could have something with Will Levis. And then once they realized they stunk halfway through the year, they turned around and traded him to Seattle,
Right.
where he ended up playing pretty well for them. Undersized coverage, linebacker, that type of mold, very much in the mold of a Zach Bond in a lot of ways, but going to come at more of a discount. And, I wonder if you don't have the money to sign, Bond, Sweat, and Milton Williams, let's say, just bring the Eagles to you. If you go with Odighizuwa and you bring in an Ernest Jones, and we can talk about pass rusher here in a second, but if you look for some of these other options and try to get a little bit more value out of it, because the Patriots, you got to put 53 guys on the roster. You got to have depth. You got to have preparation for injuries, and Pat's in a lot of players at a lot of positions. So I don't think you don't want to cheap out, but value still matters because you need a lot of good players, and you're going to need to sign more next year and the year after too.
Well, and honestly, to your point, right? You may not have a choice, right? Zach Bond may go back to Philly. Dre Greenlaw might go back to San Fran, and Nick Bolton might go back to Kansas City. Now you're looking at saying, well, Ernest Jones all of a sudden looks like the best linebacker on the free agent market, and
The bell of the ball.
he might not get a ton of money, but he's a guy that can be, at least a competent, rotational player for you. And you might say, okay, well, we'll take this guy because he's a good depth piece, and he may not be the instant starter and the instant upgrade that a guy like Bolton or Greenlaw or Bond would be, but he's a serviceable player and a guy that will make our defense better.
I would think he's a good player. One other name I want to mention, not because I hope the Patriots sign him, actually quite the opposite, is, or maybe they should, Jamien Sherwood from the Jets.
From the Jets. Yeah.
If this name rings a bell for you, it should, because he's the one that rang Drake May's bell in the game against the Jets. He was someone I noticed in that game, and I noticed the rest of the game, how recklessly he was playing. And then every time I watched the Jets the rest of the season, I could not stop noticing how recklessly this linebacker was playing. So I'm just hoping he signs somewhere that does not play the Patriots next year.
Yeah. And hey, maybe the Patriots will sign him and he'll be reckless to the Patriots.
Yeah, it'd be nice. And not hitting Drake May, most importantly. Get him away from Drake May.
I would agree.
Yeah. Should we talk about some edge defenders?
Yeah. Yep. Number 8 on the list. Leading off the edge position, of course, Josh Sweat. 28 years old, starter for the Eagles. He's the guy, right, that everyone's talking about. He's the guy that people want to see kind of bring in. And I think that he makes a ton of sense to the Patriots. I think they want to throw big money at a few different guys. If you throw big money at an offensive lineman and a defensive player, Sweat might be that defensive player you throw a ton of money at. You need a guy that that can get after the passer, and Josh Sweat can absolutely do that. And so I think it makes a ton of sense to go after Josh Sweat here.
Yeah, he's been he was drafted in 2018, actually. So he's been in the league for a while, but he was young coming out. He was 21 years old then, so he's still going to be just 28 this year. Basically a full-time starter for the last 4 years for Philly. 7.5 sacks, 11 sacks, 6.5 sacks, 8 sacks. Stylistically, different than Matt Judon, but in the kind of impact he can bring for you, very similar. And this team needs pass rush juice. So I'm very in on Sweat. If you have if the money is right for him. But another name that, I don't think it's going to happen. But the name I want is Khalil Mack.
Yeah, oh, man.
Supposed to hit the market. Here's the thing. Khalil Mack is very much just like a football guy.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's just going to want to stay with Jim Harbaugh. I feel like they like each other a lot and the culture works. But he's a great culture guy. He's a physical player, good pass rusher, and can set the edge. Kind of just a do-it-all edge. And that with the veteran mentorship aspect I think is nice as we can have him for 2 years and he can help bring in a new culture for the organization.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I love him. I'm a big fan of him. There's Deo Adabingo. Yeah.
What a name.
Adiyingbo, I believe it is. Edge rusher from Indy.
Yep.
Chase Young, I'm not touching with a 10-foot pole. I have no interest in him. Azeez Ojulari is a guy that the Giants got last year. Look, I don't hate him. I just think that he's mostly an edge rusher. DeMarcus Lawrence, I don't know. Liz Frank injury last year worries me, but DeMarcus Lawrence is an interesting name. And then let's get crazy with it. Should we get crazy with it and go Hassan Reddick?
I was gonna say, yeah. I don't know what. I obviously things didn't go well last year, but I just feel comfortable attributing that 100% to the New York Jets front office, and maybe that's Brick's fault. I don't know. Do you know the whole? Yeah, the whole Brick thing. It's insanity.
Yeah, it's completely insane. The whole thing is nuts, and so
everything about the Jets. Can't wait to see what comedy routine they put on this offseason.
Yeah.
But yeah, Reddick, I wouldn't mind. That feels like someone. Honestly, it would be really funny. Is Sweat leaves and the Eagles just re-sign Reddick? I don't think that'll happen, but yeah, well, I wouldn't hate him. The other name here is Malcolm Kuntz.
Yeah,
played for the Raiders. Interesting, but he's more of a designated pass rusher type. So
yeah, but again,
they need
those guys.
They need those. Oh, and we got to see what scheme they want to put out there too. I don't know what types of players they're looking for. So, yeah, we'll learn that there. It's funny. I feel like we've ended up it's this really good defensive class for free agents.
Absolutely,
which is good for the Patriots because they need a lot of defensive help, and you can sign a lot of these guys. They have enough money to sign 6 or 7 of the guys that we're talking about right now.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, right? And so I'm going to skip number 9 on the list, his position, and I'm going to go to number 10 on the list, which is Carlton Davis, who's a cornerback. Because the amount of cornerbacks, right? Carlton Davis, Charvarius Ward, DJ Reed, Byron Murphy, right? Those are guys that are all in that top 15. Asante Samuel Jr. Could you imagine signing Asante Samuel Jr.?
That would be when Bill's not here anymore, so that's on the table now.
Yep. Good point. And then Paulson Adebo is the other one.
Adebo is the guy I've kind of had my eyes on for a while because I think he's bigger and plays a little bit more physically, so he can bring something different to the room. He's not going to be super expensive. He's had an up and down career, and I don't hate the idea of saying we're going to have Gonzo, and then the other 3 guys we're going to put out there are going to be Marcus Jones, Jonathan Jones, Paulson Adebo, and which 2 of those 3 guys are out there most of the time is going to be entirely dependent on matchups and how those guys are playing. Let them earn reps, and guys will get hurt, will force their hand a little bit too. I've always liked Adebo. I liked him coming out, so maybe that's my bias coming out here. But yeah, Adebo is the guy that stands out to me in this group because I don't think he'd be that expensive either. I think again, bang for your buck.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Ward is a guy that's interesting to me because he started on the Chiefs, played for San Fran the last few years. Obviously, had a really for those who don't know, had a really, really tough situation where he lost his daughter. He had 5 interceptions in 2023, and of course, had an off year last year, understandably so, I think. And so, that's an interesting one for me. He's an interesting guy. I think Byron Murphy is an interesting guy as well. I don't know if Minnesota's going to let him leave. But again, a guy that can do a little bit of everything, play inside and outside a little bit, came from Arizona.
I think they're probably going to keep him because I think they want to keep their guys in-house in that secondary. They play all those exotic schemes there in Minnesota, and they like to play a lot of man coverage when they can. So for both of those, you want to keep cornerback talent in-house when you have it. You want to keep guys around the building when they already know the defense. And Murphy's a corner 1 caliber guy, so you don't If he was a corner 2 or a corner 3, you probably let him leave, go take money. But he's good enough to be the top corner.
I would agree with you, and so that's why. So I think ultimately he'll end up staying, but I think that's a name that would obviously be very interesting to me if he does become available. So
yeah, and I wanna skip down this list a little bit further, real quick, while we're talking secondary and talk safety, because this is another position. I think this is one of the most interesting positions to me this offseason because it'll be telling about where they want to go with this defense. Hawkins is a free agent. Played well last year as a role player. They can re-sign him or not. Kyle Duggar is coming off his worst year as a pro. Jabril Peppers didn't play for on and off field reasons. He had the injury that he was dealing with and a legal situation there. He's now cleared to return. Do they want him back? I think the issue with Peppers is with the legal issues, obviously cleared, but there's still the coke position in there. And Captain, who's getting busted with that, is not great. And then with that, we're talking about a guy who's getting older, who has had injury issues in his career. And if you're trying to reset the locker room, he was a voice in the locker room. And maybe you want to, he's a guy I could see being a big time Vrabel guy. He's someone I could see Vrabel saying, we like him, but with their trade value here, we can get a pick back for him and start to move into the future. So curious how they want to handle that room. So the guy in the market who everyone's going to talk about is Javon Holland. I am more skeptical than most on Holland. I think my first note is that he was one of the DBs in Miami who helped push Vic Fangio out, the defensive coordinator of the Super Bowl champions a year later.
Yeah.
So that is a big culture thing to me. That seems like an issue. He also had a knee injury 2023 and didn't play well last year. So, there's a world where it's once he's 2 years removed, he's back to the player he was. You can put him back there at free safety and he's going to be a playmaker. It's a world where that's not coming back. And I'm okay with taking the chance on it, but the money definitely has to factor in. I think some of the risk here, both locker room wise and injury wise.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And it's something that doesn't get talked about enough, I don't think, with him. I don't know what that looks like. And so that worries me with Holland. Again, he's only 25, but that does worry me. Trayvon Moehrig is an interesting name.
Yes.
Yes, I
Pat.
really, really liked him coming out of college. I'm a big fan of his. He's a big dude. It just plays physical. He's so physical. I think he was overdrafted a little bit by the Raiders.
He was one of those guys that was seen as someone who would go like late round 2 or probably round 3, and then he went top 50.
Right. It was just like, so I thought he was overdrafted a little bit, but I did always kind of like him. He's been a good player for them. I think he would make a ton of sense here in New England. Look, Justin Reed, maybe, you can make an argument. Again, I don't know if he's a game changer for you. So I don't know. I'm not 100% sure about either of those guys. I will say Hufanga is an interesting dude from San Fran. He's a little too erratic for me.
Right.
Would say that again?
Did he have an injury last year?
He had an injury last year too. Yeah, he's just a little too erratic for me. Like he's a big play guy, but then because he's a big play guy, he puts himself in like bad situations and he's like out of position sometimes, and so like I worry about that at times. But I also think that like you could use some more big play guys on your team too. So I kind of go back and forth on whether I'd want him here or not.
Yeah. Another name, Justin Reed. He's just a good player, man.
Yeah.
Just does everything well at safety. Super solid guy. Good in the locker room. Championship DNA there. So
right.
That could be like, I would not be upset at all if they're going to say, hey, we're going to make some moves at safety and we're going to bring in Justin Reed to help stabilize this.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a good call.
Are there any other safeties in this list that are
not really? No. I'd say can we flip back over to offense and look?
I think the only real big thing left is going to be wide receiver here.
Yep, wide receiver. And so wide receiver, Obviously, number 1 on the list, T. Higgins. Looks like he's going to go back to Cincinnati. Number
Yeah.
9 on the list, Chris Godwin. Sounds like he's going to go back to Tampa Bay. Amari Cooper, I guess, will be available, but like, do you want Amari Cooper? Like, he was on the Bills last year, and the Bills had nobody, and he did nothing for the Bills. And at times I thought hurt them. Stephon Diggs available, but like, I don't know. He's old. He was hurt last year. I don't know how I feel about Stephon Diggs. I don't know if he's a good locker room guy.
When he seems he bought in big time in Houston. I'm not. I think I'm
That's
worried
true.
about Stephon Diggs in the locker room, but I'm worried like 2 years from now. It seems like something that wears over time. Like he was in Buffalo
Right.
for a while and was fine before that became an issue. So
Good point.
I think he did lead. I think he lost a little bit of his juice last year, in
Yes.
2023, and now in 2024, ACL tear. I'm not like it's gonna. I'm not. I wouldn't rule it out. I wouldn't be upset with bringing him in to say, hey, we're gonna, give this a try and see how it goes. But like, that's gonna be a low price type
I would
thing.
agree.
And I suspect that for a team that feels like it's a contender, a team like that might be more willing to throw some money around.
I
for
agree
a
with you on
player
that.
like him, and I would rather let them handle that.
3 guys that interest me.
I mean,
And again, the hard thing is that you're talking about now, who do we want to just take a chance on, right?
Yeah.
Because we're kind of far enough down the list that we're looking at saying, yeah, these guys are good, but they're not going to be, playmakers right away for us. Darius Slayton is a guy that has been talked about quite a bit, that I think, can step in and be a decent player for the Patriots. I think he's a little bit overrated. He's been hurt a bunch for the Giants.
He's never even had
fine.
800 yards in the
Right.
season. He's had
He's
had over 700, but under 800 4 different times.
Yeah.
So he's just another Kendrick Bourne.
Yep.
Which is fine.
And I think that's okay. It's just like he's not a solution to the offense, basically, right?
He's like I don't know, like that. He'd almost be like a David Patton level guy of. No, actually, David Patton wasn't that guy, I don't think, when they brought him in, but like a guy who's like, okay, he can be one of our receivers and he'll be useful and he'll produce, but he's going to be a guy.
Hollywood Brown is a guy for me that is interesting. He was hurt this year, came back and played well for Kansas City when he was out there. Look, he's not super consistent, but he has a good amount of speed and he can actually run routes. He's like an actual NFL receiver that has speed, unlike Tyquan Thornton, who's gone anyways. But I like the idea of Hollywood Brown. Again, I'm not paying handsomely for him, but I don't hate the idea of him. And the last guy on my list is Dyami Brown. Dyami Brown for me is an interesting dude because, for a few weeks he was like the best receiver in Washington, which is wild. And so that one was. It's just like, hey. If you don't have to sign him for much, if you don't have to pay a ton, maybe he figured it out. I don't know. You know what I mean? And so, again, probably didn't, but maybe he did. And I'm willing to take that chance on a guy, especially if I don't have to pay a ton of money for him.
Yeah. All I can think of with Dyami Brown still, watching he and Daz Newsome and that old UNC offense. And
Lord.
For anyone who's watched that offense, it's just the most boring offense to try to watch because there's like no real route that's all just like goes and like hitches, and it's the whole thing.
Yeah, that was tough to watch.
Yeah, those were
rough. Who was the quarterback for that? I don't even remember.
Sam Howell, right?
Oh, you know what? It must have been Sam Howell. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not. I think in some ways Hollywood is the guy that interests me the most with this group because what we know the receiver group needs is speed, and he brings it. And I think if you ask him to be a role player in the offense, you're going to pay him as a rental. Basically, you probably sign him for 2 years. Like, he's not going to get big money, and you say we're going to use you as a speed receiver and. Basically, like you're gonna be the new Philip Dorsett, essentially.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna be the speed guy, and you're gonna be useful. You're gonna do stuff for us until we can find someone to replace you. And
Philip Dorsett, sneaky underrated good play for the Patriots.
He wasn't. he was clutch at points in 2018.
Yeah. He had that touchdown catch against the
Before the
Chiefs.
before
Yeah,
the
and
half.
as he was getting tackled in the end zone.
He had one against the Chargers the week before, I'm pretty sure, too, in the corner of the end zone.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was that's give me just a little bit of speed. Like, you don't have to be anything special out there, but just to stretch the defense a little bit. And like, I'm not opposed to a Darius Slayton. He can stretch, he can get vertical too. So that would work as well.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I think if you go out there, pop in the slot, Kendrick Bourne on the outside, Hollywood on the other side, and then you're gonna let Booty, Baker, Polk compete for stuff behind it. I don't hate that. I draft another receiver in there too, and let guys battle for jobs, and then see where you are going into the next season.
Well, and I think the biggest thing for me, right, when you look at what happened there, I just don't put it this way. I think that people thought the Patriots were going to be able to fix their wide receiver group in free agency, and that's just not the case. And I think that a sane person, right, would know that you can't do that, right? But I do think that it's just an interesting look at it. That's all. And it's like, of course you want that to be the case, but like, is it really the case? And so that's, those guys that are great receivers, they don't become available. T. Higgins isn't coming available. Jamar Chase is not becoming available next year. It's not happening. So like, you don't get those guys. You have to draft them. Or you get lucky and some team is willing to trade you that guy for your first round pick. But the Patriots have pick number 4. They're not trading pick number 4 for, even if it's Jamar Chase, they're not doing that. So, it's one of those things. But
yeah, and it's wide receiver with where this team is. You keep throwing the Patriots should be drafting at least one wide receiver somewhere in the draft every single season right now. It should be, because you can get good receivers on day 2 and day 3. Just throw that's why before I was advocating for throwing that money at Trey Smith. It makes sense here because you can throw the money at Trey Smith and use the 3rd round pick you might have used on a guard to try to fill that spot for a receiver, and do that enough times. Eventually, the receiver is going to be good. They have to be,
right
at some point. You're going to get lucky. So yeah. A couple other things I just wanted to note before we wrap up here on this, because I don't think we can talk. I don't think they're going to sign running backs here. Really, I don't know if there's no tight ends on the market.
No, there aren't.
There's a bunch of guys from the Raiders on here. Robert Spillane at linebacker, Nate Hobbs at corner. We talked about the pass rusher. His name's escaping me right now.
Yes. He was hurt last year.
Yeah.
I can't think of his name. I can't think of his name either. Anyways, doesn't matter. Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
Oh, Malcolm Kuntz.
That's it.
And Trevon Morag on the back end. All these guys were playing for the Raiders with Josh McDaniels there. So, there's a connection if they decide to try to go that route with it. You get a little extra insight on some of these guys, which I think is notable. Maybe they decide to lean into that a little bit. James Daniels, did he play for the Raiders too? Let's see.
I don't know. I don't think
he played for Pittsburgh. I didn't think he played for Pittsburgh. I'm just going off pictures and I see a black jersey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there's a couple of Raiders guys in here, which I think is interesting. And then one other name is Dante Fowler Jr. Free agent every year. Just like a mercenary low-end quality starter, definitely starter quality guy. And I've just always liked him. Do you know why Dante Fowler has always stuck in my head? Because on the play where the Pats could have clinched the Super Bowl against the Rams, that 3rd down run where they didn't get it and had to kick a field goal and settle for 3 there, when they could have just run out the clock if they get the first, Fowler was one of the guys who actually made the stop on the play. He just totally owned a block. It was okay, damn. Big moment, big play. Guy like that making a play. He's athletic. He's a solid player. He's nothing exceptional, but we're trying to go from bad to average in a lot of spots right now. And Not opposed to bringing him in one bit.
Well, I think the interesting thing about Fowler is that he's a guy that was drafted, in the top 10. And so I think that, that he's a guy that people expected to be incredible and is good, but not great. And so I think for a while, people thought he sucked just because he wasn't great. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. Like they can be okay. And I think that that's the case with Fowler. It's a good point with him. So
no, yeah. I'm just see if there's any. Mike is saying he's a free agent.
No thanks.
You want to go back to that?
No thanks. I'm all set. I'll take Austin Hooper instead, or someone else. You know what I mean? Matter of fact, you know what? The Sports Hub did an interesting one of those. You have $15 to choose, like your perfect Patriots offseason or whatever the case may be. And so it was like, you have $15. So I chose one. I ended up actually choosing. You can obviously go around and do kind of whatever, but they had left tackle, wide receiver, pass rush, offensive flex, defensive flex. So that was interesting. So I went with left tackle Ronnie Stanley for $5. Pass rush, number 4 pick for $4. Nick Bolton, defensive flex for $3. Because hello, Nick Bolton, come on now. Cooper Kupp as the wide receiver for $2. And then I took Jawan Johnson as the tight end as an offensive flex just because I needed $1. And I was like, I don't know. I think I have to I was going to just take Brandon Cooks or something like that. But I thought I had to take someone from each group. So I was like, I'll just take Jawan Johnson. That's fine.
Now, with the cap space that the Patriots have, they should let you play that game with $17.
I know, right? I know. So
yeah,
because you really can. I mean, I feel like, the left tackle options are Stanley. $4 is the number 4 pick, $3 is Larry Jackson, $2 is Cam Robinson, and $1 is Dan Moore. So guys that we've talked about, right? And so, I think that's. Anyways, that was just in there. I thought that was interesting. So
I will say now that we have looks like Godwin and T Higgins off the market, I wouldn't hate a Cooper Kupp trade. I don't think it'll happen. I think a contender will make that move and be willing to offer up more than the Patriots should be willing to. He's worth more to a contender than he is to New England, but quality player, even if it's a short-term thing. And you could trade for him. I forget how many. I think he has 2 years left on this deal.
I think so, yeah.
So you could trade for him if he plays well, keep him, or turn around and trade him again and recoup something.
So you do it just like we did with Brandon Cooks in 2017, right? So
yeah.
So
see what happens. The Rams, to me, are one of the most interesting teams this offseason because there's the Matthew Stafford rumor. And I got to say, I think this is the right move for them. I think that this past season they maxed out what this roster core is probably going to be able to do. And trading Stafford now, because he's older, he's almost 40 now, he's had real injuries. Trading him now, if you can get a top 100 pick back for him, and trade Kupp, maybe get another top 100 pick back, and just the whole thing with that team is built around Sean McVay being able to be an offensive genius. Their advantage, what they think their advantage is internally, is that they can build an offense even with mediocre quarterback play.
Right.
Lean into it. Trade Stafford, get some resources. The defense needs help. They nailed some guys last year, but flesh that out around it. Build the offensive line because the offensive line stinks, and play for net. Try to go get a vet quarterback for a year or two. Take Kirk Cousins for cheap. Sign Sam Darnold. Take one of those guys, and then Daniel Jones. I don't know. Anyone from this genre of quarterback. See if you can make it work for a year or two, and then draft someone, and hopefully have the team rebuilt, and then drop a quarterback in.
Well, I honestly think, that might be the best place for Sam Darnold to go. Mm-hmm. From a Sam Darnold, from Sam Darnold's perspective, if I'm him, that's the place I would want to go. So I feel like he has a really good track record of taking quarterbacks and making their lives a lot easier. Similar to what KOC did with him this year. So I think that, that's where I'd be trying to go if I were Sam Darnold. And the fact that they're willing to move on from Matthew Stafford, or at least considering moving on from Matthew Stafford, that would be music to my ears if I were Sam Darnold. And I'd be looking at it saying, this is where I want to be. And so if you can, if you can move Sam Darnold, move Matthew Stafford, and you want to sign me, then I'm in, right? And that's that. If I were in Sam Darnold's position, that's what I would be saying to them, at least. And who knows? But that's what I'd be looking at. And like you said, I think they look at it and think, we can build a contender here. And if Sam Darnold busts and isn't good, we sign him to a 3-year deal. And if he's not good, then we let him go.
Yep. Well, and I think what it also allows you to do is draft a quarterback at any point. Like if you sign him for 3 years, you can draft a quarterback this year, next year, or the year after, or the year after that. It gives you kind of a 4-year window to probably take multiple swings at quarterbacks and see what you can find. And again, McVay, quarterback whisperer, the whole thing here is that you feel like you can develop guys. So this is why, like when they signed Goff to that extension, I thought it was a mistake. I liked Goff a lot, but I thought this is a guy who's maxing out at a guy probably outside the top 10 at quarterback for you right now. Don't pay him big money. Trade him to a team that's desperate and will overpay for him and go reinvest what you've done here and keep building. Obviously, this strategy still worked out for them, but I do wonder what a world looks like where they move on from Goff after that Super Bowl loss.
It's really interesting, right? Imagine if they had traded for Stafford in that situation a year or two earlier, right? So I don't know.
Well, and I think we circled back to something from the top of the show when we were talking about I read that Cowboys blurb about the Cowboys not self-scouting well enough and letting good players leave the team because of it. I feel like the Rams are a team that has generally done this well. Like since that Goff extension, when they realized that was a mistake, they've been good at this. And I've seen a lot of discussion that says the Rams played the Eagles competitively in the playoffs. Like they were not that far off this year. Like, why would you do this? And I think that's kind of that's a limiting way to look at it. You had playoff success, so you can't move off the group. It's how the Giants extended Daniel Jones and ended up in the situation they're in now. Like you have to have a very good grasp internally of why did we have the success we have? Is it repeatable? Can this group be what it needs to be? And if you're the Rams and you look at, we got Stafford with maybe 2 good years left, probably 1 good year left. Offensive line's not that good, and it's not going to get fixed in one offseason. Defense still needs depth, and we're relying on 2 receivers who are injury prone. Yeah, maybe we thread the needle and win it this year. Odds are you probably don't. So why not recoup something on your assets while you can and play for the future?
Yep, I agree.
Which is something you can do when you've banked the Super Bowl win and ownership trusts you.
And you got some wiggle room, right? You got some wiggle room, and you're Sean McVay, the quarterback whisperer and the offensive genius. You know what I mean? You have some wiggle room there. So
versus a team like the Giants right now, who
and the
they can't like this. Situation. Well, this is something like I'm glad the Patriots have never really put themselves in that position here of the team stinks. They don't have a quarterback. They're picking at the top of the draft, so they have to make a quarterback. And they're all just doing this to save their jobs, regardless of if it's the right move, because they have brought people into the next season who are on the hot seat if things don't work.
Which is stupid. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So
silly to operate that way, because now you're forcing yourself to do a move that you might not actually like that much. And then you're going to fire guys. It's the Bears.
And then you hire a new guy that says we don't like these guys and bring someone else in. It's a mess. It's a mess.
Yeah. So. It's just poor organizational strategy.
Yep. So as bad as the Gerard Mayo thing was, and as bad as it was to move off from him for 1 year, and as much of a mistake as it was, Robert Kraft owns it.
Yeah.
Went in front of everyone, said I made a mistake, and got out in front of it instead of bringing back Gerard Mayo.
Yeah.
He's on the hot seat. Everyone in the world knew he was in the hot seat. And so you bring a coach back. He's going to do whatever it takes to win and win now. Forget about building for the future. We just want to make the team good now so I look better because I'm trying to save my job. Right. And, I think that matters. That matters. And I think that was smart. from him. So
Yeah. I do agree there. Pat, I lost you, by the way. Yeah, we got no visual on you.
I don't know what. So it
Yeah.
looks like my camera was
Hit a chord.
unplugged.
While we're doing that, there's a string of 2 comments here I wanted to highlight because I did think they were funny a couple minutes ago. But Brandon saying Vrabel should ask Wolf for his least favorite guys in the draft and then draft them. And Boston Bob following up by saying the Costanza do the opposite gambit. Love that. Fantastic.
Yeah. Hopefully I'll let Wolf has a better year this year. We'll see what happens. But
Well,
you never know. I also think Steve Smith, who made a lot of headlines this week, believes that, it was most of the coaching staff as to why Jalen Polk had such a bad year. Now,
maybe.
I don't know if he's right or not, but, maybe he's right. And Jalen Polk will look much better with a different coaching staff. I don't know. I don't necessarily trust that, but maybe he's right.
Maybe. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I hope he is. I don't think there's really a track record for guys producing like he did year one, bouncing back to become good players. No, but
there is not. But you never know. Anyways, all right, let's get the heck out of here. One last final note. Corey says, how about trading for Kyle Pitts? Kyle Pitts is not going to happen. Sorry. Nope. Stop believing Kyle Pitts is going to happen. Just let Kyle Pitts go. Let him go.
I think he may just have lost. I don't think he has the athleticism anymore.
No.
Like he got hurt right away, and it's just not.
Nope.
And this right here is why you don't draft a tight end early.
Yeah.
I love Tyler Warren. I love Colston Loveland. I have Loveland over Warren. I have for a long time. Obviously, I am just a little bit biased in this, but I just think Loveland is a really good player. I'm just not taking either in the first.
No.
If I'm the Patriots, even if you trade back,
right.
even if I like the depth of this tight end class, so I would just throw a pick there, and if you can throw a day 2 pick and a day 3 pick, a wide receiver and tight end, and
Harold Fannin Jr., someone like that, right? So
I like Gunnar Helm.
Yeah. Anyone, I'm down with whatever. So
wide receiver Jack Besh. I gotta say, after your mock last week, people want to go back and check out Pat's mock. He has the Pats taking Jack Besh, and I dug into that film after that, and I'm in love with him as a player. I think he might be one of my guys.
So I was saying to you, I think I said it on the show that I was considering making Savon Revel my guy for this year. I actually may go with Besh because
is he gonna be our guy?
I don't know. I just love what he brings to the table, man. I love that type of player is so much fun. He's such a great blocker, man. And he just gets open. He just gets open and catches the ball. I mean, what else do you want from a guy?
He doesn't have the best top end speed, but he accelerates really fast in a straight line. So he's still able to get on top of guys, and he just doesn't need that much space to win. He's one drop in college last year. Yeah. He's got really good hands, big catch radius. He's the former tight end, and you see that in the way he runs routes.
Yeah.
There's points in there. I guess you worry about physicality with receivers like that because it's all right, you can't separate. But he creates separation at points the way that Hunter Henry does because he knows how to box guys out and he knows how to bump guys at the top of the route and not get called for a penalty on it.
Yeah.
And I loved it. My player comp for him is literally Hunter Henry, but if he was a wide receiver.
But a wide receiver, yeah.
And if he could run after the catch. Because Besh is hard. Oh my God. I think I shared some at some point. If I haven't, I got to put some online. The clips of him running after the catch, he just doesn't go down. You need 2 or 3 guys to tackle him. And not in some Gronk athletic freak way, but just I'm tougher than you kind of way. He just he's balanced well. And, I love him. I really, really love him. Give me some Jack Besh in the third, man.
I love it. I'm a big fan of that. So
yeah.
All right. That's it. We're out of here. Thank you, everyone, for coming through. We appreciate it. We'll be back later on in the week with a mock draft. 7-round live mock draft. First one of the offseason. It's going to be fun. So we'll talk to you then. Thanks for coming through. Thank you to the chat for for being very lively. We appreciate it. And we'll talk to you guys later on this week. Be good to each other and go Pats.